Hey everybody, welcome down, and today we are going to be talking about something that literally all golfers can benefit from, but nobody seems to take that much notice of. It's the simple understanding that golf is a target orientated sport, and where the club face is pointing at impact has the biggest say on the success of any given golf shot. And guys, if you're enjoying these coaching videos here on SwingQuest, do not forget to become a subscriber to the channel. Jacob, how good is your zoom? Their balls are next to each other. Look at them. Now, this particular video has been inspired by the many lessons I've had down the years who've come to me wanting to make big changes to their golf swings to improve their overall games. We are talking about trying to make changes to swing plane, to hip movements, to postures, to everything in between, to try and get that little ball flying straight down towards the target, when often one of the biggest things which is overlooked is simply where that club face is pointing at impact and also throughout the swing. Let me explain in vivid detail. So recently I actually gave a lesson to someone who hit a pretty consistent slice. It was a fade generously, but it was pretty much a slice. Everything moving from left to right in the air. He was a right-hander, and most of the shots finishing out to the right-hand side with a slightly weak ball flight. Not much power being generated through the point of impact. Now, the main conversation that we had was about swing path. So he was moving the club out and over, moving the club miles off to the left, putting a lot of cut spin on shots. And we spoke about how he really wanted to change his swing path. He wanted to move the club a little bit more from the inside, a little bit more shallow, a little bit more of a draw feeling. And after a while it became clear that he was so obsessed with trying to get the club a little bit more shallow and how to use this big movement more onto the inside that he completely forgot to look at his club face. So as he was moving it up to the top of the swing, there was two things that was happening. His left wrist was becoming cupped, and that opened up the club face in relation to the target. Then as he got up to the top of the swing, the club face was wide open. So you can see here, I'm exaggerating this a little bit, but you can see here how that club is pretty much pointing down at the ground, the club face. That puts it in an open position in relation to target. Now what that means is as you come down into impact, and as he was coming down into impact, if he moved the club on a more shallow plane, the club face would be so far open, so far off to the right-hand side, that it'd just go at a 45-degree angle without even being a shank. So your brain knows that you want the ball to go down there. The club face is pointing over there. There's a couple of things that can happen here. Either the wrists and the hands work overtime to try and close that face, or the body can move the club over the top, swing it massively off to the left-hand side, and that will help negate how open the face is, because it will add the curvature onto the shot by starting the ball off to the left and then moving it to the right-hand side. So all this effort, all this time invested in trying to get this club a little bit more shallow and on the inside was completely pointless, because his brain was not going to allow him to move the club in that manner when the club face was so open. You can change your technique, you can alter it massively, not by making these huge sweeping technical changes, but by focusing on the club face. Because your club face, if it's pointing down towards your target or near your target at impact, your body will naturally start to adjust around that position. That is because it is a target orientated sport. Naturally, you will want the ball to go that way towards the flag, that way towards the fairway. And if your club face is in a good position to enable you to do that, your body will fall into line. Woo. But how can you do this? How can you know where that club face is pointing, and how can you alter it without making these big changes to technique? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through the face positions in the golf swing in relation to these two cameras that you can position yourself and actually have a look at. I would always recommend doing these changes or making these types of adjustments with the help of a PGA golf professional. But if you are diligent, this is something that you can check yourself. Then what we're going to do is have a look at how you can alter those face positions if you find yourself having any of them within your own technique. So first of all, we're going to get set up and assume that you want to hit a straight shot. That means that you want the ball to set off straight, down towards your target. So at address, I'm going to be aiming my club face straight down at the flag. And I'm going to take a parallel alignment to that point. So it's basically a couple of train tracks going from the ball to the target, and then you can see how my feet are on a parallel line to the side of that target as well. Now the first checkpoint for a square club face in relation to that target is, as I take the club back, I want the leading edge of the club to be matching my spine angle. This means that the club face is in a neutral position. So at this point in my swing, it is still pointing down towards the target. Then as I take the club up to the top, I want the leading edge to be matching the angle of the back of my left wrist and my left arm. Again, this is in a square position. As I move the club down into impact, again, I want that club face to be returning square to the target line. And then as I move through, I'm just going to release the club, come up to a nice finish and act like I know what I'm doing. Striking it well this morning. Now let's have a look at those positions again, but in open and closed positions. Now what I am saying is that if you get into an open position with the club face throughout the swing, the chances are you will return the club a little bit more over the top to try and correct that with a slicing motion, or you will manipulate the club coming through impact to try and get that club face back to being somewhere like square. Now please remember that throughout this there are players, we're talking about a Dustin Johnson, a Colin Morikawa, a Jordan Spieth, there are players who get into positions within their swing where the left wrist is a slightly funky position, the club face is closed, the club face is open. They make corrections coming through impact incredibly consistently. So you can alter your swing, as mentioned, to get some decent results. But this is a core baseline that you can use to understand where your club face is throughout the swing. So first up, at this halfway stage when the club gets parallel to the ground, again, club face here is parallel to my spine angle. If the club face started to rotate, and you can see here how the toe of the club is pointing a little bit more out behind me, this would be an open position. So this club face in relation to the target is now pointing off to the right-hand side. If I get up to the top of the swing, and again, you can see how this left wrist is in a cup position, the club face is pointing a little bit more down towards the ground. Again, this is an open position. This will cause a little bit more of an out to in movement. If we get to this halfway stage and that club face is rotating more down at the ground, this is in a closed position, so pointing off to the left. If we get to the top and that club face is pointing up at the sky, again, this is closed, pointing off to the left, and those would mean the adjustments coming through the ball. If your club face is in one of these weak positions throughout the swing, we will need to have a look at either strengthening your grip or strengthening your wrist angle. So this is a weak grip, as you can see here. Now what I can do is move my top hand a little bit more onto the top of the club and my bottom hand a little bit more underneath. Now this will help you to close the club face, to strengthen the club face throughout the swing. As you can see here, this is a strong grip, so this could be causing the club face to close. And what I can do here is move it back into more of a neutral position, and this will help keep the club face square. Again, it is entirely possible to hit good shots and to develop good positions of the club face with the first two grips, both the weak and the strong. But that takes manipulations of the wrist angle. Now we've been doing some videos recently with Hack Motion, which is a fantastic training aid. You can check out the videos here for more information on what wrist angles do, but as a very brief summary, if I get my top wrist and I get it into a bowed position or a flexed position in here, what that will do is that will close the club face. So it's entirely possible to have a weak grip and to move the wrist in this angle here, and that will strengthen the club face and come out with something approaching neutral. The same, if I have a very strong grip and yet I cup that left wrist, again, I can get that club face into a pretty neutral position. So these are the compensations that you can make to enable you to get that club face square. But remember, this video is all about you understanding what these club face positions mean and what they will cause to your overall technique if they are not kept in check. Okay guys, to continue your swing quest, make sure you check out these two videos here and become a subscriber to the channel if you haven't already.